Hi everyone, my name is Miss Emily and I thank you for coming to my session today. Before we get started, I would like us to think about 3 questions. The first, do you want to make a difference? This could be a difference in your community, in your neighborhood, or even in your school. Secondly, consider an issue in your neighborhood or school that needs to be addressed. And this could be anything from needing a stoplight at an intersection or giving feedback to your local representatives. And then finally, do you want your voice to be heard? This is something that women have wanted for years and years, is to have a voice, especially when it comes to issues in their communities. And so I think it's important that we talk about ways in which that we can make positive change in our neighborhoods, in our communities, and do it effectively and in the best way possible. As you may know, there are several ways in which we can make a positive change and we can have our voices heard. A few of these could be just having a conversation with people who think like us, but also with people who don't think like us. So having an open conversation and sharing your views and sharing your knowledge. You can also join groups that do sort of fall in line with the things that you believe. You can also vote, and voting is a very important thing that we as a country have the right to do. So it's important to exercise your right to vote. But today we're going to focus on a simpler way to share our concerns, to give our feedback and give our suggestions to our local officials and our school officials to make a positive change. Today we're going to write letters. So the things that you're going to need are 2 pieces of paper, one for our warm-up and one for our activity. We're also going to need an envelope and then a pen or a pencil if you have one, preferably a pencil. So let's get started.
For our warm-up, brainstorm a list of items you would want to change in your neighborhood or school that would benefit everyone in the community.
A few things you want to keep in mind as you're writing this letter is that it is a formal writing. It is a formal document, so you want to make sure that you use proper grammar and you use proper spelling of words. Another thing that you want to be sure that you do is to keep your margins along the side as straight as possible, especially if it's a handwritten letter. Now, if it's an email or if you type it on Microsoft Word, it's different because the margins are done for you, typically about a 1-inch margin. But if you're handwriting it, be sure to try to keep those margins as clean as possible. So you can see in my letter, I tried to keep them as clean as possible, as straight as possible, especially if you're doing handwritten letters. Another thing, remember, you are trying to make positive change. You are trying to give feedback that can make positive change or make a difference. And you're trying to make suggestions. So you want to be as formal as possible, but you also want to use positive words. You want to use words that will let the reader know that you're not frustrated, you're not upset, you just want to see change. Okay? So make sure that you're using positive language and positive words as you're writing these letters too.
To begin your letter, choose one item from the list you created during the warm-up. To begin our letter, we'll start with the header. This includes your name and your street address. Next is the greeting. This is where you will address the person that the letter is for. For example, Mayor Strickland or Principal Fisher. In the body of your letter, you want to be sure to include who you are and why you're writing. You can also give feedback or solutions to an issue. And then finally, you want to thank them for their time. Finally, you're going to sign the letter, so put your signature at the bottom.
The last thing you want to do with your letter now is mail it. And regardless if you hand wrote it or if you typed it and printed it, you do need to follow some steps to mail. Now, the one thing that you will need for this, obviously, is going to be an envelope. A blank one is fine, and you can add the details on it, and we're going to look at how to do that. But make sure you have an envelope. Make sure you either have your written copy of your letter or a typed copy of your letter. Go ahead and print that out, and let's get ready to format our envelope.
To begin, you will need to add the return address. This will be your name and your personal address. just in case the mail cannot be sent to the recipient. The next step is to add the recipient's address, or who you're sending the letter to. Be sure that you format the addresses just like is shown here. The final step is to add a stamp. This shows that you've paid for the mail to be delivered. If you need stamps, you can always find them at the post office.
Once you've finished your letter, go ahead, put it in your envelope, put a stamp on it, and then send it in the mail. This is a great way to start making changes. Even if they're little changes, at least something is being done. And this is a way that you can impact your community, you can impact your school, and this is a way that positive change and positive action can start with you. Right now, all you may be able to do is write letters, and that's okay, but eventually you will be able to vote, and you'll be able to share your opinions at polls. So if you are interested, or if you feel like there is something that can be done better, or if you want to give your feedback or your suggestions to your schools or your local officials, write them letters. So before we get finished, I just want to debrief with you all, and I want you to think about a few things. One, what other ways can you promote positive change? So in what other ways can you promote positive change? Secondly, how can you continue to follow through and hold your city and school officials accountable? This is very important. Sometimes they need to be reminded, and that's okay. They have a lot on their plate. So I want you to think on these things, and I want you to use them, and I want you to use them to make positive changes in our community and in our city and in your schools, because it's important to have your voices heard, and you have very powerful voices. So get out there, write your letters, and make good change.